AAA forwards. If you want to play more like Ivan Demidov, who has zero fear of holding the puck, zero fear of making mistakes, and who at 19 years old is picking apart NHL defensemen like he's been a point-a-game guy in the league for the last 10 years, then you've got to understand why you don't play like that right now. When you watch Demidov play, he looks loose, he's calm, and he's completely present. And of course, he has a ton of skill, but you have to keep in mind that you probably have a lot of skill too that you're not using. Compare this loose, calm, creative, present style that Demidov has to how you play. For example, you catch a pass, you instantly feel this voice in your head say, don't turn it over. Then you feel that tightness take over your body and you make a simple play instead of just protecting the puck or deking the guy out. The worst part is you tell yourself it's a smart play or that this is what your coach wants. And deep down, you know it's hesitation. You know it's fear. Fear of getting benched, fear of getting sat, fear of getting embarrassed in front of other people, fear of letting your parents down, fear of not playing the way you know you're capable of and not reaching your dreams, not getting scouted. But that fear you have has created bad habits in your game that scouts are always going to notice. That fear leads you to freeze up with the puck. It leads you to avoid taking players on and deking them. And it leads you to deferring to teammates, handing them the puck instead of taking control of the game like you know you're capable of right now. We both know this is stopping you from playing at your potential. And what you need to realize is that every time you hand the puck over to your teammate too early, you're handing them the spotlight and you're handing away chances to show D1 scouts what you're capable of. So if you don't know me, I'm Corson Searles. I'm a mental performance coach. I've worked with hundreds of players from AAA, high-level junior, national development team, NCAA D1, high-level pro, AHL, and other pro leagues. And soon we're going to have players who are playing in the NHL. And I say this because I've dealt with players so many times who've dealt with this exactly the same thing, and I've helped them get through it. And what I've noticed working with these hundreds of players is that there are 5 mental blocks that players who struggle with this fear have that elite NHL players like Ivan Demidov don't have. And in this video, I'm going to break down each of them in depth, just like if I were working with you as a client. So the first mental block I see is the punishment loop. Essentially, it's how you were trained to fear mistakes. So this is based on a lesson I teach to every single player that we work with. And it's this idea that environment shapes identity. So from a young age, players are conditioned through reward and punishment. And so the way you can think of this is that, for example, let's say when you're young, you held the puck and everybody said, nice job, and you made good plays. Then you feel good. And then what happens is you do more of that action. This is a reward cycle. You basically take an action, you get a reward, it reinforces that action, and then you do more of it, right? This is what it basically installs a neural circuit or a thing in your brain, just like an app gets downloaded on your phone. So if you have a bunch of times where you do a good thing and then you get rewarded for it by people praising you or you feel good, people give you attention, then you basically wire this kind of superstar mentality very early. Now, if you hold the puck and you turn it over, or you hold the puck and the coach doesn't like that and they yell at you, you're going to feel bad. And then this is going to rewire your brain to do it less. You basically get punished. And so this punishment is basically saying, don't do that anymore. And then you learn to not do that. Your brain starts to associate taking risks with pain and says, I don't want to feel pain, so let's not take any risk. And you start to simplify your game. You avoid doing things that a skilled player would do. And this is how you stop playing like a star player, or you never really get to be a star player because you just never actually lean into that risk taking that's required to be able to play with confidence with the puck. So the problem with this mentality is that you rely so much on external validation. And so if you've been wired this way, especially from a young age, because as kids, we're totally wired for external validation. But as we get older, we have to learn to basically internally build confidence. Essentially, what we develop is this ability to be able to really feel that energy and that confidence from within, as opposed to relying on other people to give it to us. And so this means we don't need other people to say, good job or good try. And when something goes wrong, even if we get yelled at, we don't take that and put it as part of our identity. We don't store that as a memory of I'm bad. We start to have this mental toughness that I've been teaching with a lot of our players this last week. This idea of when you're mentally tough, you're able to take something bad that happens and it actually makes you better. You actually grow from it. It motivates you. You channel that energy into the next thing. And so a player who isn't able to basically handle, risk is somebody who probably has wired their brain to not be very mentally tough, but ultimately it's actually that they've wired their brain to associate pain with risk, pain with mistakes. I dealt with this so much as a kid and it sucked because I could have been way more offensive. I could have had a lot more fun playing, but I was always scared to do it. I felt like I needed to be Mr. Perfect out there and it sucked and it drove me insane. And this essentially led to a perfectionist mindset, which we can talk about in future videos. But the idea behind this first piece is really to understand in depth that our environment shapes how we see ourselves through that reinforcement or through punishment. And so essentially, if in your career you had a lot of rewards for taking risks, for making plays early on, well, then you probably have a leg up on people who maybe didn't get that. And so the key takeaway here is that your fear of getting benched, of being embarrassed, of being let down, of not being successful, it's a conditioned response, meaning it's something that's been wired into your brain. And the key to really being able to be a confident player is learning how to self-reward, self-reinforce reinforce, to rewire your brain on your own to do the behaviors you want to do instead of waiting for approval, waiting for your coach to say good job. You have to take actions in your preparation, how you train, what you do beforehand, and then you have to take game actions which lead to you getting better, right? So preparation is getting better, and then obviously performance actions means you actually take the action, make the play. You have to be able to do that without seeing a reward. And so when people talk about this idea of like manifesting something in your game, you can think of that as believing you can do something before you have evidence. So then you take the action and you get something to happen, and then you say, oh wow, I manifested that in my game. Well, maybe you did. Maybe there's this law of attraction, but I think what happened is that you just took the action in alignment with that different belief. And so that's why you have to shift the belief in who you are. You have to shift your identity deep down, and then that allows you to take different actions, and those different actions get you different results, which then reinforce your belief in yourself, which makes you more confident. So that's why identity shifting is so important, because when you do that, you see yourself as a different person. And when you see yourself as a different person, you then get different outcomes, and you then take different actions. And the only way to get something in your career is to take different actions. So you have to do something to get something. You can't just hope it happens. You can't just hope your coach puts you on the ice. You have to become a different player, and then you will start to get different opportunities. And so this leads us into the second piece, which is the label trap. So we talked about how the coach and what they say and the reward they give us oftentimes basically shapes the way we see ourselves. It also comes down to how our parents treated us and how they basically told us, good, you did well there, or bad, you didn't do well there. And we just had this constant cycle that trained us to see ourselves a certain way, and that formed our identity as a player, what we believe about ourselves as a player. But the problem is that coaches see you as a role player right now, or probably do, not as a creator, not as an offensive player, somebody who contributes. And so this is based on a lesson that I teach to every player in our programs, which is understanding the label we have, which leads to the role that we get, which leads to the opportunity we have to perform, which then allows us to perform and to use our skill and use our ability. And so your coach's perception of you, or your label, defines the leash you get as a player. So what I mean by this is when you look at two different players on a team, one player may be somebody who is not that much skilled than another guy, but that player is allowed to do a lot more and still get put on the ice. That means he has a bigger leash. The coach is saying, you can do more, you have more range to take risks. And this other player who's a similar skill might be stuck on the third or fourth line saying, why can't I do that? I feel like I have a similar skill set. Why am I not allowed to do that? If I try something and I mess up, I get benched, I get scratched, I get yelled at. He doesn't. Why? I don't get it. Why this happens is because the coach has a label for you in his head. So he sees things you repetitively do, and it might be something you did before you got to the team. A lot of times labels get formed before you even arrive, or your label gets formed very early in tryouts or very early in the season, and then that label very much sticks with you throughout. So if a coach sees you early on as a play it safe player, somebody who doesn't take risks, somebody who's afraid to make mistakes, well, they may label you as a safe player, label you as somebody who should be more of a role player, and that label is going to limit your ceiling. It's going to lead to what I call your opportunity ceiling. So you might only get to take so many risks, and you may only get to make so many mistakes before your coach says, hey, I'm pulling you out of that position, or I'm not going to let you stay here. So essentially you can think of that once a coach has labeled you in a certain way, he's going to have a bias to seeing you do that more. He's going to expect you to do that. And when you do something that's out of that range, he's going to be surprised by that. They're going to say, hey, that's not like you. Why are you acting like that? Why are you making those plays? That's not usually what you do. And so when a coach is basically filling the different slots on a team, you have to think he's trying to take the labels he has for players and fit those players kind of in based on their labels. So a player who's stuck in a fear cycle never really expands their role, never really is able to expand their label. They don't get seen differently by the coach. And if they do, and they start to reach out a little bit, then what can happen is they're very fragile in those moments. And if the coach then scratches them the second they screw up, or yells at them and says, never do that again, well, it breaks them. And then now their brain just goes into safety mode and it kind of balls up and says, all right, never mind, not going to do any more of that. And now that reinforces that new label again, because you go right back to being safe. So the biggest thing you have to realize is that you can't escape your role until you redefine your label by behaving differently first. And the problem with this is when you do change your behavior, when you do start to act differently, at first, you're not going to get rewarded for it. At first, you may actually get punished for it because you're acting differently than you used to. And so during that time, having mental toughness, having resilience, being able to tolerate the challenges you're facing is extremely important. And a lot of players that go through this need a support system. And yes, your parents can tell you, yeah, you're good, you're awesome, but also it's having somebody who can be there when you go through it, help you apply these principles. It's why we do what we do. We wouldn't exist as a company. We wouldn't do this identity shift stuff if it didn't make a difference for players. We do this because we see so many players go through it. And it's really, really difficult when you do start to make the shift and the label still sticks, but you internally have shifted how you see yourself and your identity. So you start to make more plays, but then then somebody breaks you down and says, no, like that's not you. Well, if you have a very fragile identity, well, that can really hurt. If you don't, if you've built a very solid framework of who you are as a player and built that belief very deep into your subconscious mind, then that negative stuff, those punishments that the coach gives you, don't break you. They just say, okay, cool. They fuel you to keep working, and you don't take it personally because you understand at a fundamental level that everything's all right. It's all good. And this is a game you're playing, and you don't get too wrapped up in it. You don't get too emotional, and then you don't start hating your coach, which is a big issue I see so many players in minor, but also in junior hockey face all the time. And so now with this issue, I want to explain something super important that really builds off this of, okay, how do we actually start to implement shifting our identity, shifting how we see ourselves on the ice? I'm going to teach you a simple technique that allows you to be able to completely transform your mind and make a shift in who you are very, very quickly. And so this is the idea of the block self versus the ultimate self. And it's the battle that every player goes through in their life and why you need to develop an alter ego. And so this is based on the alter ego work that we do with players, helping them develop a new hockey identity or an alter ego that is essentially a superhero version of them that steps on the ice, that is able to take all of the things that they know they're capable of and helps them channel it into the game. And then when they step off the ice, they step out of that alter ego and they step into this calm, relaxed state. And so how the alter ego works is it really helps you step past your limiting beliefs that you might have off the ice. Right? A lot of players see themselves as nice people. They see themselves as kind and never a mean person. But on the ice, they might need to be mean. They might need to be confident, or maybe off the ice, they see that as, oh, I'm being cocky if I believe in myself and I expect to have the puck on my stick the whole game. But if you want to be somebody who controls the whole game, you need to create an alter ego or version of you that brings in totally different traits and who you are off the ice. Unless you just want to be kind of an asshole off the ice, which is fine. But on the ice, you need to be what you need to be. And so an alter ego allows you to separate and almost compartmentalize. This is who I am here. And then you kind of let it go. You take off the suit and boom, you become who you need to be off the ice. People do this naturally, but when you really develop the skills and master this, you become unstoppable. So to go a little deeper on this, you can think of the block self as somebody who plays not to lose, somebody who's trying not to make mistakes, somebody who hesitates, who fears pressure. But if you tap into an alter ego, you can unlock your ultimate self or your ultimate traits, which is somebody who acts freely, who attacks the play, who moves with confidence, who trusts themselves. You can unlock those traits that Ivan Demidov has. And so when you look at Ivan Demidov, inside his mind, I believe there are two mental programs that he's running that allow him to be super confident on the ice and make the type of plays he makes. So I don't believe he has a ton of nerves. I don't think he's super scared. I believe that he's trained this ultimate self to take over control very quickly. I believe that he has an alter ego when he steps on the ice. And honestly, he's a little bit of a deviant type of player off the ice. But sometimes the Russians, you kind of see this where because they don't speak super fluent English, they kind of just like to be kind of like funny and joke around and a little bit like confident because they say, oh, I'm the best. I'm the best. But it's hard to tell what's really causing that. So the way you can think of this is that you can start to see these players like an Ivan Demidov, who he's very, very good at being able to tap into this very in control, very poised, very fearless version of him. And so the takeaway you want to have is that fear isn't something that you need to remove completely, but it's being able to be somebody who is able to shift into a different version of them, who has no problem handling that fear, who has no problem handling any of those things. And so if you want to learn how to do this, you can check out the links below. You can apply to basically work with us, and we do this right away when we start working with the player. But this is essentially the path you want to go down, is understand where you're currently blocked, where you want to bring in an alter ego. And also, if you want to learn about alter ego stuff, you can also just Google it. Todd Herman has a book about it. That's also a good book. There's a lot of stuff out there. So don't think like you have to work with us if you want to learn this stuff. I just want to be clear about that. So now if you understand the alter ego, the other thing we want to make sure we do is we just reprogram how we make decisions on the ice. So this is reprogramming our instincts. And it's basically how we want to operate under pressure. And this is based on the concept of how we influence instincts or neural links in the concepts of if-then programming. And again, this is a lesson we teach every player. But the thing is that most players train mechanics, but they often don't train their instincts. So you can think of your instincts as, if I'm in this situation, then I do this. And what you need to do as a player is you want to use visualization. I know, crazy word. Everybody talks about it. Not a lot of players do it consistently, but you want to basically use it to program your mind to make, if I'm here, then I do this decision. So essentially it's, if I feel pressure, then I do this thing. Maybe I protect the puck and I hold it. If I lose the puck, then I reset and I demand it back right away. Right? You're probably starting to see Ivan Demidov. He's doing this stuff. This is consistently a part of his game. So if you watch him, if you watch these clips back again, he has these instincts. He has these neural links that he consistently uses in these moments. And he has trained these so in depth that he's able to use his mechanics. He's able to use his physical speed, his size, his strength. He's able to leverage all that stuff because he knows, if I'm in this position, I'm able to do this thing. And a lot of players, the key to being able to change this is you need to you start to have the confidence to take extra time to prepare in the way that's going to help you. And I say this because having confidence about who you are as a player, knowing what your identity is, allows you to then say, I'm going to spend 30 to 60 minutes a day deeply programming my mind using mental simulations, programming it into my brain through playing these things out in my head. You have to believe in yourself enough to take that extra time, to sit there and not do anything, not go on Instagram, not go on YouTube like you are right now, and actually take it seriously. You have to ingrain it into your system. And so you have to realize that confidence doesn't just come from an emotion. Confidence is a coded thing in your mind. It is the programs you have in your mind, how you make decisions, and trusting those decisions. If you have enough evidence that your brain is wired to make the right decisions, if you visualize hundreds, maybe even thousands of times, maybe tens of thousands of times, if you've seen yourself score thousands of goals, if you've seen yourself do certain plays over and over again, you will have this deep confidence that naturally radiates into the game because you've seen yourself do it. And then if you have a stable identity, you have mental toughness to handle when you do make mistakes, and you're able to handle when your coach does give you the wrong role or whatever it is, and he has a bad label for you, you can handle all that stuff. Well, then as you learn to rewire your brain, you will start to actually change your brain's defaults. You won't default to fear anymore. You'll start to default to trust, to confidence, to believing you can make the play because you actually have the instincts wired and you understand exactly who you are. So hopefully this is starting to make sense. It's starting to really click in of how all these pieces click together. And now to really tie the pieces together, I want to talk about mental toughness or emotional toughness and how to be consistently composed when pressure hits. And this is based on the 4 pillars of mental toughness. And I learned this concept from a business coach initially, but fundamentally this comes from something called behaviorism in science. But the 4 pillars are tolerance, fortitude, resilience, and adaptability. And so tolerance is essentially building up how long until you break. So being able to be somebody who has a very long fuse, somebody who can handle a lot of challenges and not break. You can start to notice, do I have tolerance, by noticing how many times do I take actions? How many times can I push through? When a difficult thing happens, can I just take action? Can I just play? Can I just make the play consistently? If a coach yells at me, can I just keep going or does it pull me off? Now, if it does pull you off, if something bad that happens, like you miss a shot or you get yelled at, if that does pull you off, you need fortitude. It's how bad does it pull you off? How bad does it break you down? If you're somebody who is able to bounce back very quickly, it means you're able to cut off that negative spiral. And then you can start to use resilience, which is shortening the gap between the bounce back period or the recovery period. A resilient body is a body that's able to recover quickly after it's damaged. So a mentally resilient person is somebody who's able to recover quickly after they mess up. So fortitude is being able to catch the bad thing and cut it off. And then resilience is being able to notice how fast do I recover after. And then adaptability is the final piece of the puzzle, which is, do I grow or do I get worse after a mistake, after something bad happens? And so somebody who's adaptable actually improves and keeps getting better, keeps getting better, keeps getting better. And that makes you unstoppable. So if you have these 4 pieces, tolerance, fortitude, resilience, and adaptability, you will become a mentally tough person. Now, the key to this is that you have to start to get better at knowing who you are as a player and understanding where you struggle within this. So one of the big things we teach players as we start to work with them is to notice, where do you struggle with tolerance? Do you struggle with fortitude? Do you struggle with resilience? Are you not adaptable? And what you'll notice is that fearful players have low fortitude. They basically instantly lose confidence. They fall off. They spiral the second that something goes wrong, the second they make a mistake, the second the coach yells at them, and this breaks them. The secret to someone like a Demidov is that they have high fortitude and they have high adaptability. If he turns the puck over, he doesn't crumble. If he gets yelled at by the coach, he doesn't crumble. He doesn't fall down. If he does fall, if he does make a mistake, he just gets right back up. He rolls into it. He's excited to attack the next play, and he's adaptable. He gets better. He learns so much. You can tell his brain is just this supercomputer that's always taking in new info and making new decisions. He converts every moment of pressure into creativity because he also has high tolerance. He's able to be in a high pressure situation like his first NHL game and just show up and look super confident. And so the key to realize, the key takeaway I want you to have with mental toughness is that it isn't being emotionless. It's being able to keep taking actions, to keep trusting yourself, even though you do feel something bad, even though something bad does happen. So every player who does rewire these 5 mental blocks changes how they show up instantly. So here they are on the screen again. I'm going to walk through them one by one very, very quickly. So the first one is the punishment loop. You have been wired or trained to fear mistakes, and you have to break out of that. Number 2 is that you probably have the label trap going on right now. Your coach sees you as a certain role player instead of somebody who's able to create, and you're going to have to break out of that. And it's going to take some serious mental toughness. It's going to take a serious clarity on your identity to be able to get there. The third one is the block self. You have to really understand, what is that ultimate self? Create an alter ego that allows you to step in and be who you need to be in games. You have to develop that skill. The fourth one is reprogramming the instincts of how you make decisions so that confidence naturally radiates from the evidence you built and from having the wiring to just make better decisions, which then leads to better plays on the ice, which builds more confidence. Then the fifth one is having clear mental toughness. You're able to stay composed anytime pressure hits. You're able to keep taking action in training and in games because you know who you are, you know what you need to do, and you have all 4 components of mental toughness. So if this video hit home, share it with a teammate, or if you're a parent, share it with your son or daughter so they can actually break through this. They can stop being scared on the ice and they can start playing to their potential. Because if you work your ass off, if you're a super hard worker, if you're somebody who loves the game, who gives everything to it, you outwork everybody on your team, but you know your mind is getting in the way. You know you're not as confident as you should be. You know you're not having as much fun as you could be. And please click the links below. The first one is to see what it looks like to work with us. Apply to work with us if you're interested. You really should if you are serious, because I've been through this personally. I know the challenges, the pain that players go through, and I want to help you rewire that fear, build confidence, really unlock your decision making, and just find who you are as a player. Because if you want to finally play free like someone like Ivan Demidov, then you need to click that link. Gotta work together. And we are going to help you become the most confident player on your team, the smartest player on your team. And please, if you need anything else, just comment below. Let us know what you want to work on next. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have an awesome week.